Mississippi has a violent crime problem. In fact, our capital, Jackson, leads the nation in per capita homicides.
With 106 homicides so far this year.
2 more deadly shootings over the past few days.
2 people were killed.
Violent crime is a tragedy because of the loss of the mothers, the fathers, the brothers, the sisters, the family members that we lose. But the taxpayers lose too. That's why my office issued a report on the cost to the taxpayers of homicides here in Mississippi. But more on that later. Let's get down to specifics. Homicide.
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 Mississippi's homicide rate is 20.5. That's the highest in the country. This paper represents the homicides in Mississippi in just 2020. And you may think all those homicides are in Jackson, but that's not quite right. This is a Mississippi problem. A group of researchers looked at the homicide rates of all 50 states, and then they stripped out the homicides that happened in those states' most homicide-prone areas. For example, let's look at Chicago, one of the most dangerous cities in the United States, and the entire state of Illinois. In Chicago, 510 people died by homicide in 2019. That translates to a murder rate of 17.2. But let's see what happens when we take Cook County, where Chicago is situated, out of Illinois' homicide stats. Illinois falls from 7.7 homicides per 100,000 people to 3.4 homicides per 100,000 people. That's a 55% decrease in Illinois' statewide homicide rate. Put another way, Illinois would move from being a top 10 most dangerous state to one of the safest states if Cook County's homicide data were omitted from the statewide homicide reports. What about Mississippi? If you take Hinds County's homicide stats out of Mississippi, Mississippi goes from around 12.3 homicides per 100,000 residents to around 10.7 homicides. But unfortunately, that means Mississippi, even without Jackson, is still the second most dangerous state in the country for homicides. In fact, 52 Mississippi counties have a higher homicide rate than the national average. And as state auditor, I can tell you these homicides are devastating for taxpayers. My office estimates that each homicide costs you, the taxpayer, somewhere between $900,000 and $1.2 million. That means with 576 homicides in Mississippi in 2020, it cost taxpayers around $570 million that year. Nationwide, 7.5% more businesses close as the number of nearby gunshots and homicides in an area increases. Home values are proven to suffer as homicides go up. Property tax revenue declines as homicides go up. So what can we do about this? Well, real research shows the solution. More police equals less crime. I'll say it again. According to real criminology experts, the research shows that more police equals less crime. Based on current research, every 100 new police officers on the street could prevent between 6 and 10 homicides per year. And that increased police presence is popular too. Gallup found that over 80% of Black Americans want the same or more police presence in their community. We also know that keeping violent criminals off the streets prevents homicides too. The technical term is incapacitation, getting dangerous people off the streets for the sake of victims. We have to stop catch and release.
A woman accused of shooting and killing a man after a drug deal is now released on bond.
A Natchez teen, free on a $100,000 bond on a murder charge, was arrested in Jackson on Saturday and charged with shooting a gun at a member of his family.
Some people say we have too many people in prison already. In fact, according to a Vox poll, Americans believe 61% of prisoners are behind bars for drug-related offenses. But the truth is very different. In Mississippi, drug-related inmates only account for 18% of prisoners. And some of those 18% are there for selling drugs, pushing poison on our streets, in other words. Or they were defendants who pleaded a more serious crime down to just a drug charge. The truth is we need to be tougher on violent criminals to protect victims and the taxpayers. According to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, 20% of murderers serve less than 5 years in prison. The same source says more than half of murderers have a previous felony conviction record. Per research compiled by Rafael Mangual of the Manhattan Institute, the average state prisoner has been arrested more than 10 times. If we get tough, put more cops on the street, and stop, catch, and release, we can solve Mississippi's violent crime problem. And we've got to get this right. Taxpayers and those who have been victimized by violent crime in our state deserve this. It's time to get serious, get tough, and put a stop to violent crime in Mississippi.